In August 2019, headlines around the world carried a claim that sounded almost surreal. The President of the United States wanted to buy Greenland. Late-night comedians turned it into an easy joke. Political commentators brushed it off as another impulsive remark. Even close allies treated it like a misunderstanding that would quietly fade away. But there was a question almost no one stopped to ask. What if it wasn't a joke at all? What if the idea of buying Greenland wasn't absurd, but inevitable? Because once you move past the memes and mockery, the proposal points towards something far more serious. A slow-burning global struggle over land, resources, military reach, and the future balance of power. Welcome to its financial history too. To understand why Greenland suddenly appeared in global headlines, we need to understand why Greenland has never really been just ice and emptiness. Greenland is the largest island on Earth, positioned between North America and Europe, stretching deep into the Arctic. For centuries, it was treated as a frozen afterthought. The climate was harsh, the population small, and economic activity limited. On the surface, it looked irrelevant. History tells a different story. During World War II, Greenland became strategically vital. The United States established bases there to protect Atlantic shipping lanes and to prevent Nazi Germany from gaining a foothold in the region. After the war ended, the U.S. never fully disengaged. Thule Air Base, now known as Pacific Space Base, became a core part of America's early warning missile defense system and space surveillance network. This wasn't a temporary interest. In 1946, the United States quietly offered Denmark $100 million in gold to purchase Greenland outright. Denmark refused. The proposal vanished from public discussion, but it never vanished from strategic thinking. Greenland wasn't forgotten. It was simply waiting for the world to change. For most of the 20th century, the Arctic remained geopolitically calm. Ice made shipping difficult. Extracting resources was expensive and risky. What lay beneath the frozen surface stayed largely untouched. Then slowly, the conditions that kept the Arctic quiet began to disappear. Climate change altered everything. Arctic ice began melting at unprecedented speed, opening shipping routes that had been inaccessible for centuries. Routes that once took weeks around traditional passages suddenly became significantly shorter. At the same time, geological surveys revealed what had always been hidden under the ice: massive reserves of oil, natural gas, and rare earth minerals. The Arctic is estimated to hold roughly 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and nearly 30% of its undiscovered natural gas. Greenland, in particular, contains rare earth elements essential for modern technology. These minerals are critical for smartphones, electric vehicles, renewable energy systems, and advanced military hardware. In a world increasingly dependent on technology, control over these materials means leverage. As the ice retreated, Greenland transformed from a frozen frontier into a strategic prize. By the time Donald Trump entered office, this transformation was already underway. China had declared itself a near-Arctic state and began investing in Arctic infrastructure, research stations, and mining projects. Russia reopened old Soviet military bases along its Arctic coastline and deployed advanced missile systems to protect new shipping lanes. The Arctic was no longer quiet. It was becoming crowded. When Trump raised the idea of buying Greenland in 2019, it shocked the public, but it aligned perfectly with long-standing strategic concerns inside the U.S. government. His administration was aggressively focused on countering China's global expansion and limiting Russia's military reach. Greenland offered something rare in modern geopolitics: strategic dominance without war. Control over Greenland would have secured America's position in the Arctic, strengthened missile defense systems, expanded space surveillance, blocked Chinese economic influence, and guaranteed access to critical minerals for decades. This wasn't about land for land's sake, it was about shaping the next century of power. Then came the moment when strategy collided with symbolism. Denmark rejected the idea immediately, declaring Greenland not for sale. Greenland's own leaders emphasized autonomy and self-determination. Trump canceled a planned state visit to Denmark, escalating the situation and reinforcing the narrative that the whole idea had been foolish from the start. To the outside world, it looked like a failure, a strange proposal, rejected and abandoned. But something important happened beneath the surface. The rejection didn't end American interest in Greenland. It exposed it. After the backlash, the United States increased diplomatic engagement with Greenland. reopened consular offices, expanded military funding, and pushed back more forcefully against Chinese investment efforts in the region. The method had failed, but the objective remained unchanged. The global reaction to the Greenland proposal revealed something deeper about modern geopolitics. We often confuse tone with intent. Trump's blunt and unconventional style made it easy to dismiss serious strategic moves as unserious. But history shows that major shifts in power often arrive disguised as something strange, uncomfortable, or laughable. Buying territory is not unprecedented. The United States purchased Louisiana from France, Alaska from Russia, and the Virgin Islands from Denmark. What made Greenland feel different wasn't legality. It was symbolism. In a world that claims to have moved beyond imperial ambitions, the idea of purchasing land exposed an uncomfortable truth. Geography still matters. Resources still matter, and borders are more flexible than we like to admit. The laughter wasn't just mockery, it was denial. After the controversy, Western leaders tried to reframe the Arctic conversation. Emphasis shifted toward cooperation, environmental protection, and scientific research. Agreements were signed. Committees were formed. The language became softer and more reassuring. But competition didn't stop, it intensified. Russia expanded Arctic shipping routes and military infrastructure. China increased polar research missions and economic involvement. NATO quietly revised its Arctic defense strategies. The United States invested billions into icebreakers, satellite networks, and northern military capabilities. Ignoring Greenland didn't make the problem go away. It only delayed open confrontation. When you step back, Greenland doesn't look like an exception. It looks like a pattern. The South China Sea, Ukraine's strategic position, Africa's mineral wealth, Taiwan's dominance in semiconductor manufacturing. Again and again, global powers compete for control over critical locations and resources long before conflict becomes visible. First come investments, then diplomacy, then pressure. Only later, if all else fails, does open confrontation emerge. Greenland is still early in that cycle. What Trump did, intentionally or not, was reveal the quiet part out loud. He exposed how power really works in the modern world. Not through speeches about values, but through control of logistics, resources, and geography. Greenland became a mirror, reflecting an uncomfortable reality. We are entering an era where physical assets matter as much as ideology. There are 3 lessons worth taking from this story. First, the Greenland proposal was strategic, not spontaneous. It fit decades of military and economic planning. Second, the Arctic is becoming one of the most important geopolitical arenas of the 21st century, and Greenland sits at its center. Third, dismissing uncomfortable ideas as jokes is one of the fastest ways to miss major turning points in history. History rarely announces itself clearly. More often, it whispers through strange headlines and awkward moments that are easy to ignore. Greenland wasn't a joke. It was a signal. The real question isn't whether great powers will compete over it. The question is whether the world will recognize what's happening before competition hardens into conflict. If this story changed how you see that headline from 2019, then you already understand why it matters today. Like the video if you value deep analysis over surface narratives. Subscribe if you want more stories that uncover what power is really doing behind the scenes. Because the most important moves in history are often the ones everyone laughs at right before they happen.